Welcome into Flag for Discussion, episode 81 for Monday, June the 2nd. My name is Farbod Merkazi, here as always with Jace Hatfield. Back with Jace Hatfield. We are back. If you tuned into last week's show, I see the download numbers are actually pretty great. For a best of episode, we had a really fun weekend last weekend, but obviously weren't able to record a live brand new show. So thanks for sticking with us for that. There's going to be a couple more of those coming up this summer. But Jace, we are back. Are you recovered from last weekend?
I think I'm finally there. I had my flight canceled on the way home, so I was like, okay, I'm taking advantage of this. Got some more fishing in. Played a 6 a.m. round of golf by myself, which was great. And then I think it was, so I got home Tuesday night. Wednesday, I slept like 12 hours. Wednesday, I was like, okay, but still groggy. Thursday is finally when I woke up. I was like, okay, I feel like I'm back. And then I torched myself again yesterday, went to the Tigers-Sox game, had a handful of beers as you do with your friends on a Friday night at a baseball game.
Yeah.
And then I actually slept amazing last night. So I woke up feeling pretty good, ready for the pod. I do miss being in Montana, though. There's nothing that beats, like, do I want to go fishing? Do I want to go golf? Or do I want to crack a beer at 8 a.m. with my friends and go play some beer die? So I am missing that a little bit.
That was, I mean, for all that we've talked about off pod, by the way, inside baseball here, Jason and I have been on this pod for an hour and a half, rehashing last weekend and talking college football as if we've podcasted for an hour and a half, and now we finally said let's hit record. So if by the end of this show our energy goes down a little bit, it's because that's going to be 3 hours straight of us just yap. But that weekend, for all that we've talked about it was really cool, obviously, to meet like your family and your friends, but also like Montana's gorgeous, and the golf, everything we played. A week ago we were in the middle of several beers in golf. By the way, I made one terrible decision last weekend, and I realized it after I got home. So
what is it?
I opened up my suitcase, and my fiance, I'm like, I got you something. So we got her a shirt at the gas station, or like it sounds so bad. You don't go get a shirt at a gas station, but like you had like a gift shop. And then I think I got a shot glass and whatnot. And I also got her a hat from the golf course we played. So I wish I knew you went to golf again. But she was like, oh my God, this is so cute. And she turns around and was like, it said toddler.
Oh, no.
Okay, this is also before the drinks had started. Who let me get a toddler hat?
Why did it say toddler on it? Why would a hat ever say that in the first place? That's an interesting merch decision by a Double Arrow here.
It's massively, one of your other guys got a hat for his lady, and it was right next to the one I grabbed. So I was like, oh, it has to be a woman's hat, but it happened to be a toddler hat. I'm like, oh, no.
Does it fit?
No, dude, it's one of those like tiny stretchable ones.
Hey, one day when you guys have children, this will be a great gift for them. Their first hat.
She said the same thing. She was like, I guess we'll have to wait. We'll keep it. I guess we'll have to wait. But if you find yourself in Montana again in this summer, can you send me a hat?
I will gladly.
I owe her a hat. All right. Well, on the college football front, there's the SEC just can't stop. We pride ourselves on being a show that talks about everyone. We pride ourselves on being a show that doesn't only go SEC focused. I know a lot of the mainstream shows out there get a lot of flack for like, all you talk about is the SEC, all you talk about is the Big Ten. Well, we can't we can't have our integrity as a college football coach and not talk about the SEC after the week they've had at the SEC spring meetings. Every coach has sound bites. Every coach is complaining. At this point, why even lace them up? Why play football this year? So we're going to get to that. If we have time, I want to hear from Jace what his bucket list college football stadiums are. Right? It's a off-season show. We want to. There's so many stadiums out there. So many places we've been to. I think you've been to more than me. What do you want to go to? What do you want to see? I mean, it's crazy how much news has come down. We're not going to talk about the Save College Football Act that Congress introduced this week. I personally don't want to break it down until there's legs in it, but unless you have any thoughts.
No, I think it's better to wait on that one. Just like you said, nothing's been truly impacted yet by this, and I haven't really heard what the impact will be. So until then, we'll lay
Yeah.
off. And the SEC is a content machine. Like I think they give us fun conversations here.
Yeah. Before we get started, make sure you are following us on YouTube at Flag for Discussion Spelled Out, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Flag for Discussion Spelled Out. We're on TikTok at Flag4 Discussion and Twitter at F4 Discussion. 2 weeks since I've done that. That's the longest I've gone in a year without saying that, and I nailed it on the first try. Baseball regionals are also going on. Before, I guess that's the other question. Do you have a pick?
I do have a pick. I would love it for it to be our Ducks. They are in it. They are not my pick, unfortunately. I think they lack the pitching depth needed. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets. They, I think, the best offense in baseball, and then very formidable pitching. And I don't know. I love it. For those of you if you're not a baseball fan, look at their jerseys. They're white jerseys with like the reflective Yellow Jacket scripts and like the gold helmets and gold hats. Very clean jersey. Just love the way it looks. And they're a kind of electric team. Anytime you turn on a game and watch somebody put up 20 plus runs, and it's just doubles, home runs. Super fun to watch. So that's going to be my pick that I'm going to bandwagon. Obviously, Ducks are the team I'm rooting for the most, but Georgia Tech will be my prediction. I was also thinking this morning, if every team in the baseball regional, if that bracket, I should say that better, the NCAA baseball regional bracket was turned into a football bracket, who comes out on top?
It was turned into a football bracket?
So we had the NCAA regionals turned into football teams.
I have to open up these brackets now.
Immediately, I'll help you out a little. Immediately, like Georgia is up in there. Oregon would be up in there. There's no Indiana, no Ohio State. So that kind of takes out two big dogs in the football space. There's also some unfortunate souls like Milwaukee that would probably they did beat Auburn. They would probably get dog walked by Auburn in football. Although you never know. You never know.
I think UCLA would beat St. Mary's. I don't know if St. Mary's has a football team. Here's what I'll say about that. I think without getting like straight into college football, the same thing would happen as if they expanded this to 24 teams. The extra games don't matter. Who's the best 3 teams? And they're going to be in the final. The best 4 teams, they're going to be in the final 4, and then the best team's going to win it. So, Oregon and Georgia probably right up there.
Ole Miss, I think, would have a good squad.
That's a Tennessee.
Yeah.
UNC might be one of those schools that struggles more in football than baseball. Florida's playing Rider. Miami's playing Troy. Man, yeah.
Genuine question. Who wins, Oregon State or Yale?
For baseball?
For football.
For football.
Yeah, I think Yale's a formidable Ivy League squad.
Yeah, but I feel like
the Beavers a little bit.
You still got to have some Pac-12 faith, right? Jamarcus Shepard, maybe he's going to do some fun things this year. I don't know. I would still probably pick the Beavers, but I wouldn't have any analysis behind that. I also, we're not in game planning mode, so I guess we'll have to, if we were making our actual picks, I'll do a lot more research for that. The other thing I was thinking about for the NCAA regionals is, why isn't this more popular? Like, why is Omaha on a Tuesday that the bars don't know about? Like, why baseball's, I get it. It's not March Madness and it doesn't have always the same magic, but like, dude, it's so much fun. Baseball's both of our first sports early on. Like, it's just a ton of fun watching these guys some of these guys last time they'll ever play baseball, some of these guys, you're watching future major leaguers use metal bats, which is really fun. Like an Oregon player yesterday hit almost what would have been a 500-foot home run if the light pole didn't get in the way. They should make him use a wood bat. Like, that guy is going to hurt somebody.
He also looks like a defensive end. For those of you who haven't seen it, just search like Oregon regional home run. It is the loudest home run I've ever heard in my life. It was a hanging curveball. And I think at the StatCast estimation was like 520 feet, and that's at sea level. Was the home run?
That's actually a really good point you make. Dan Lanning's got to have a talk with Oregon baseball and see if they could They already did that with Bryce Betcher. I'm sure he's gonna try to take him in at least as a preferred walk-on. All right. Let's talk some college football, Jace. The SEC girlies are back at it again. The SEC spring meetings happened this week, and every coach had a lot to talk about. So I'm just going to go down a list, and we can talk about each one, whether it's 2 minutes to 30 minutes. But I think the funniest one, or the story I love the most, Joey McGuire versus Steve Sarkisian. The Sark came out at SEC spring meetings, said there's a team in our state in another conference with a schedule that I would argue if I played my 2s and 3s, we could go undefeated, and they'll probably make the college football playoff this year. So by process of elimination, he's talking about either TCU or Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is probably going to make the college football playoff this year. So we can narrow it down even further to Texas Tech. Basically, what Sark's saying is like, if I played my 2s and 3s, if I don't even have a starter out against that Texas Tech schedule, I'd go undefeated. I'd make the playoff. But my starters alone probably aren't good enough for the SEC. So then, as everyone else, if you haven't been paying attention, what Joey McGuire did after that, the Texas Tech coach, let me backtrack. What Steve Sarkisian didn't know, I guess, is that the Big 12 also had spring meetings this week. So Joey McGuire also had a microphone in his face. So what Joey McGuire did is he said he reached out to Abilene Christian and Texas State. Abilene Christian, they're scheduled to play week 1 against Texas Tech. And he said, we would love to buy those games out. We'll pay you the money that we would owe you to not play those games in order for us to play Texas. Texas, you go make it happen. And then he also said Cody Campbell, the big time Texas Tech booster, doubled down on that. And he basically said, the money's there. Their teams are ready to agree to it. Just let us know if you're ready for us to buy you out so we can play Texas. And Sark, you can put your money where your mouth is. And no one here's what I think. No one expects this to actually happen. No one expects Texas to actually buy out their week 1 or whatever game to accommodate playing Texas Tech. But this is a genius PR move by Joey McGuire and Texas Tech, because Joey said it, like last time they played Texas, they lost like 55-7. They've lost to them many times while Joey's been the coach and Sark's been the coach. But I also think Joey, despite the Brennan Sorsby thing, he believes in where Texas Tech is as a program now. And he's like, all right, well, either one, we say we can buy out the game. Texas cowers on it, doesn't buy out the game, and we look like the big dogs now. We are elevating Texas Tech's brand in a level, because there's programs like Oregon and Texas Tech that have come up through quote unquote money. They don't really legitimize themselves in the eyes of other people until there's some PR involved too. It's not just winning; it has to be winning plus PR you have to change the hearts and minds of people. So with everyone's perceptions right now, is Texas is the big school in the state of Texas. TCU, Texas Tech, all the other schools are just catching up, or just like the little brothers. But now Joey's basically trying to make a PR statement of, no, big brother's scared of little brother. Does that make us better? And I think it's a genius move. The second thing that this could happen is that the game could actually happen. That's great for college football. It's great for you and me. It would be terrible for Texas if they scheduled that game and lost it.
Mm-hmm. This is it's a lose-lose situation for Texas, because you already kind of look silly because you kind of threw shots at a program that just didn't feel necessary. And I'll say this too, you only throw shots if you are nervous or scared or insecure about that program. I do think there's some reality of Texas Tech is becoming able to recruit the top end talent in the state of Texas. I do think there's a little fear or insecurity for Sark there. So he throws shots, which immediately already kind of screams, hey, you're probably a little insecure if you're throwing shots out of the blue like that. Like, there's no reason. It's not like Joey McGuire had any beef or didn't do anything to, he did nothing to earn this. Joey McGuire is a perfect comeback to this. It's basically saying, I've set everything up. The money's coming out of my pocket. All you have to do is say yes, and we're playing. So now the ball is fully in Texas court. And it's a lose-lose, because if you if Sark doesn't respond and says nothing and just lets it go, he just kind of looks soft. It's like, okay, you talk the talk, you're not going to walk the walk. There's not a lot of respect in that or honor in that. If you schedule the game and you win, then it's, oh, you beat a team you should have, and you said you could have done it with your 2s and 3s, you did it with your 1s, whatever. People kind of forget about it in a week. Or you schedule the game and you lose, in which case now it's you talked shit and you lost, and Texas Tech just proved themselves and proved your original statement truly incorrect. And on top of that, then you give up any of the leg room that is recruiting in the state of Texas. You give up a lot of that swagger that comes with talking shit and backing it up. You lose because now Texas Tech has beat you. And if you're a high recruit in the state of Texas, you're thinking, man, Texas Tech's able to price match Texas. And I don't know, that was kind of cool. Joey McGuire kind of just owned Sark. Like there's a lot to lose if you're Texas now and not a lot to gain, which just makes the original Sark comment a little idiotic to just throw shots like that. I did not know Sark had beef with Texas Tech in that regard. And this is shortly after Sark he threw some shade at Ole Miss and Pete Golding recently, which also taking the, oh yeah, that's hilarious. A Power 4 school taking an academic high ground over another Power 4 school when it comes to football. Like, I think we all understand where you guys lie with academics and how that actually matters when you're talking about Division I football players. And the last thing I'll say is this. My approach, I want to talk about Texas and their approach coming into the season. Last year, I think it's safe to say they had a down year. They were supposed to be one of the top 5 teams in the country, kind of a guarantee for the playoff. There was Arch Manning Heisman conversation going into the year, and none of that came to fruition. They were a solid team. They went 9-3, had a solid year, but they missed the playoff, and there was some controversy there that we'll talk more about. If I were Texas, I think my approach coming into the season would have been to be much more discreet, to say, hey, let's be quiet, let's grind our asses off behind the scenes, and let's go beat some of these teams on the field, win some of these games we lost last year, and let's prove ourselves. But you have a little bit of a down year, you make some big moves in the offseason, and now you're talking smack. You've already created a rivalry with Ole Miss. You're kind of throwing shots at the Big 12. You're just putting a target on your back. And as a program that underperformed, that's trying to get to the next stage, I don't know if putting a target on your back is particularly the best strategy to having a good year. You're just making your teams want to beat you more than they probably already did. It was a bold strategy, in my opinion. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Sark's little coming out party here.
I think what you said overall is where my brain originally went. This isn't out of it's out of jealousy. It's out of a place of, hey, Texas Tech's playing this schedule and we're playing an SEC schedule. That's messed up. It's also a place of maybe he didn't necessarily mean it as a full-blown jab, but it's like Sark's comments are, Steve Sarkisian is a good football coach. But just like a lot of football coaches out there, he's become a really good politician. And what politicians do is they try to elevate their base. And what Texas is saying right now is, hey, man, we had a hard schedule last year, barely made the playoffs. We have a hard schedule this year. I want to start the politicking now of, if we lose 2 or 3 games, which is soft as hell to already pre-predict losses, like you've said before the show, but he's trying to get the committee ready of like, hey, just so you know, Texas Tech might go undefeated against nobodies, but we're over here playing a really tough schedule, and we deserve the ability to get in over a 1-loss, 2-loss Big 12 team, 1-loss, 2-loss Big 10 team because of the schedule we play. So I think that's an aspect of it. I also think it's really interesting. I don't know. You know me, when I play any video game, I take the GM mode. I want to build a team up. I want to, whether it's college football playoff, we can do dynasty or whenever, or MLB The Show and I'm in franchise mode, whatever it is, I like the building process. And I think Texas Tech, to me, they have legitimized themselves in terms of money, financial threat. And it's only been a couple years of this, so they're young in this process. But they still have not legitimized themselves in the eyes of recruiting for a bunch of these kids, especially from the state of Texas. Like if Texas and Texas Tech both offer an offensive lineman $500,000 out of the state of Texas, the kid's probably going to still choose Texas because he has the longevity of like, well, that's the program of the state. That's the program that has won national titles. That's the program that has 100,000 people at their stadium. That's the program that if I go there, I can make a lot more money in NIL. Texas Tech is that's the program I can go make a lot of money, but they don't have the winning history. They don't have like the gravitas Texas does. It's a very similar way, in my opinion, that USC looked at Oregon. Despite being in different states, Oregon still recruited Southern California as if they were a California school. And they really started hurting USC's recruiting. So it's a place of like probable fear from Texas's standpoint of, hey, just so you know, you can get paid this much. You can get by Texas Tech, or you can get paid this much by us. Come here, develop, and you'll be playing as the best of the best. You'll be in front of more TV cameras. You'll have the ability to really develop, or you can go play Colorado on a Thursday night and beat them 59-0 just and not really get watched on TV. I think as Texas Tech legitimizes themselves more and builds themselves up more, they need to have PR wins like this to start changing the hearts and minds of people. Not that people think they're a bad school or a bad program, but that they're not the school. You know, they're not the program yet. And that's what this is like the first step of. It was like, we're not just a cute school with money. That's you and I as Oregon fans, we've been through that. Now we're the big bad. Now Oregon's the big bad school that like, oh, the only reason they're winning is because of money. But Oregon's developed themselves and PR'd themselves and legitimized themselves as not only a school that has money, a school that is cool, is flashy, makes a bunch of plays, but a school that wins. And to win, you need to start getting recruits at a cheaper price than having to overpay. Because don't get me wrong, Cody Campbell. I know going long. Cody Campbell and Texas Tech can overpay. They have billionaire pockets. They can, but they don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Rather play fair market price for a kid, and especially if the Safe College Football Act comes down and there's a hard cap, and however they choose to enforce that, whatever. Texas Tech knows we can't live in a world where the only way we can get a 5-star kid is by paying them 200 grand more than the next best guy. So the best way for us to do that is start evening ourselves with other schools in terms of perception.
Yeah, exactly. 3 years ago, Texas Tech, if they were fighting for a 5-star, that offer had to be hundreds of thousands more over Texas if they were going to pull them out of Texas or out from Austin. But the goal is I want to be able to offer the same price as Texas, and you still would end up choosing Lubbock over
Yeah,
Austin. That's the goal, and that's what they're working towards.
and they may never get there,
Yeah,
but they want to get close.
yeah, exactly. The better you can get at closing that gap, the better off you are. One other thing I'll say too that we haven't talked about, but I thought about in the moment was kind of funny. Sark throwing shade at this week's schedules and the strong schedule of the SEC. You actively chose to leave the Big 12 to go to the SEC. Like, don't forget that you made that decision. Like, had you been ripped out of the Big 12 without any say and placed in the SEC, I could get being like, this is stupid. We just went from an easier conference to a harder one without our call. You made that decision. So don't cry wolf and be all upset that you have a tougher schedule now. You made the decision to go from Big 12 to the SEC. You wanted the money, and what comes with money? Playing big games, playing in a harder conference. If you want to make big money, then you're going to play in a harder conference. And if you want to play in an easy conference, then you got to be okay with having a little less money. You can't be the guy that wants the millions of dollars, but then also wants the easy cupcake schedule. You can't have both. And you made the decision to sacrifice the old way for the new way. So do not complain that you don't like your new way. And if you want to complain about it, then go to your AD or your school president and say, we messed up. Let's go back to the Big 12. Don't pull the crap of our 2s and 3s could win their schedule. Your 1s couldn't even beat Florida, who was barely a SEC school last year. So do not cry wolf. I don't feel sorry for you. You made this decision because you wanted more money. This is the price you pay for being greedy and wanting more money. Don't complain about it. And I'll do a little shifting here because I think Kirby Smart had some SEC saving words. So is it okay if I bring us on to this next topic here?
The only thing I just want to put a capper on this, and especially like what I was saying in terms of like closing the gap. Joey McGuire has developed from his high school coaching days. He coached like for 30 years in the state of Texas and at a high school. He was one of the best known coaches around the state. His reputation at Texas Tech for the last several years before they got the money became, well, there's a lot of high profile kids that Texas Tech and Joey McGuire get in on early. They're not even rated yet. They don't even have a star yet. But because he has relationships with the high school coach from Austin, the high school coach from Arlington, wherever in Texas, he gets in on them early. He starts developing a relationship with them early. And what has hurt them before Cody Campbell came in 2 years ago, 3 years ago with Texas Tech was they get in early on a kid. Then all of a sudden he goes to one, like, whatever, like one like camp, and all of a sudden he's a 4-star kid, and they can no longer afford him because Georgia's in there, because Texas is in there, because Oregon's talking to them, USC's talking to the kid, and they're like, dude, I just spent 3 years developing a relationship with him, but because we can't be on the same playing field in terms of financial support or in terms of school gravitas, we can't get the kid. So that's 3 years of not wasted recruiting, but like 3 years of like, I should have been like, it's almost like we need to get on the same playing field. So
Mhm.
they're on the same financial playing field. Now they got to get on the same PR mental perception playing field, because if Joey McGuire and Texas Tech can combine the excellent identification, excellent evaluation plus NIL that Texas Tech has, they can build a really, really, really formidable squad. Now we can move on.
Yeah. No, I think that's good commentary. And let's move on to talking a little bit about the SEC 9-game schedule. So, as you kind of alluded to earlier in the show, this past week, over the last 2 weeks, I should say, it's been ongoing. The SEC and the Big 12 both had their spring meetings where the coaches get together, conference commissioner. That's what happened with the Big 12. With the SEC, it was coaches, conference commissioner, and the college football playoff committee reps were in
Yeah,
there
and
with
that
the
was weird as
SEC
hell.
teams. And something that I'll start with, just one overall issue. Those playoff reps, they weren't there for the Big 12 spring meetings. The Big 12 didn't get to air out their concerns and their frustrations and their desires and get promises with the reps. The Big Ten's not going to get to do it. The ACC is not going to get to do it. The SEC got to do it. Basically, what happened was, if you guys all remember, a year ago, for not even a year ago, for all of time, the SEC has been playing 8 games in their conference. Well, the Big Ten had lobbied for them to go to 9. And under the pretense that the college football playoff was going to expand to 16 teams, that's what the SEC was originally under the impression of. They agreed to go to 9 conference games. They'll play 9 conference games. That'll add a high quality win, improve their strength of record, strength of schedules. And then that way, on the 16 team playoff, they've got a better standing to get some more teams in. Well, that hasn't happened yet. The 16 teams, we're still at 12. Now there's talk of 24, which I will give SEC credit. Thank you, Sankey, for not supporting the 24 team playoff. He's the one that's saying, hold on here. But in the light of all of this, some of the SEC coaches have come out and expressed regret for going to the 9-game schedule. They expressed they should have stayed at 8. And Kirby Smart has some good quotes that I'll hand off to you to read. But last thing I'll say before that happens, the main reasoning why they want to go back to 8 is they're basically saying, hey,
They're
we
scared.
play the hardest schedule in the country in the SEC, and now we still only have 12 teams, but now we have to play 9 conference games instead of 8. So we're playing a tougher schedule than everyone else, is what they are saying. All right, I'll hand it off to you because I think you have some good commentary, and Kirby Smart had some good quotes that I would love to hear you break down.
Yeah, the article I linked in our doc, Jace, it has quotes from a lot of different coaches, but
Mhm.
the ones that I found most pertinent, right, the ones I found the best were Kirby Smart. There's when Nick Saban retired, one of the bigger fears in college football was we're losing our voice from the coaching standpoint. And there's going to be a vacuum of guys trying to get in there. And Kirby Smart was the obvious pick to be like, you're going to replace Saban as the guy who's going to be the spokesperson for college football. It didn't seem like that's something he wanted, though. Like, Kirby Smart wants to coach his team. Dan Lanning got in on it. I think Dan Lanning, that's not even a bias thing. Dan Lanning blew up virally during the college football playoff with all of his comments on how to make the sport better, what he thinks the sport needs. Dan Lanning wants it. There's so many coaches that are gonna want that role. Is like, when I talk, the NCAA listens. When I talk, college football playoff listens. And there were a bunch of coaches in the SEC meetings that like Sark started complaining about, well, there's some regret in us moving to 9 conference games despite the fact that the playoffs still 12 teams. Kirby Smart at least came out and said, you could say there might be regret in going to 9. I'm not blaming the committee. I'm blaming the system. I don't know that they can recognize and acknowledge truly and say strength of schedule matters. And you're putting a team with one more loss in their column over a team that might have one less and they play the same schedule. You had that same bias when it was 4. I got left out of the 4 several times and thought I had the best team in the country. You don't go cry about it. You don't go scream about it. It was what it was. People make decisions based on what gives them the best opportunity to have success. Sometimes that's unfortunate. I've been in this conference for a long time. I've listened to Coach Saban come out of these meetings for a long time. It can't always be what's best for self-preservation. It has to be what it's best for the game. And sometimes you'll get caught in the middle of that. That was a breath of fresh air for me
A
because
million
every
times, yeah.
other SEC coach, I don't want to say every other, because Mike Elko was like, what are you asking me for? Like, we made the playoff for the first time last year. So a bunch of the coaches didn't have a ton to say. They were like, yep, we play an SEC schedule. Why are we crying about it? But the more outspoken of coaches, Steve Sarkisian included, they've already brought up saying like, why did we move to 9 when that just like we're the deepest conference? That just adds 9 more losses for the conference, right? And that just lowers our ability to make the playoff. And to that, I was like, guys, every other conference in America does it. It's not that it's not the whole like, well, if your friend jumps off a bridge, you have to too. But it's like every other conference in America does it, and now I would be crying too if I had to go from playing East Directional State Tech University, Polytechnic, Colorado School of the Mines to playing Oklahoma week 11. Like I would be crying if that happened to me too. But it's not like a unnormal ask. This is something that fans have been begging for years, and like the SEC fans have had their nose in the air, saying like, "Well, we're the SEC. It just means more. If we add a 9th conference game, it's we're going to be hurt. We're going to beat ourselves up." No, it's because you don't want to take the 9 extra losses, and that's the frustrating part for me. And the Kirby's quotes to me were a breath of fresh air because it felt like a guy who got it. He said it might not be best for you. It might not be self-preservation for your job as the head coach because you might take an extra loss, but it's best for the game. And sometimes we have to understand what's best for the game is what we should do. And going to 9 conference games is what we should do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm looking for the stat here. Oh, here it is. And I think part of what Kirby's alluding to, which is a good stat that CBS Sports provided in that article, over the last 3 years, the Big Ten has won the last 3 national championships. In those 3 college football playoffs, the Big Ten is 15-4 against non-Big Ten teams. So the Big Ten is saying, spot the ball. At the end of the day, you can cry wolf, but push comes to shove, we're winning the games. And on the flip side, I think what Kirby, probably a reason why Kirby is not defending some of the SEC coaches, is the SEC is 3-7 against non-SEC opponents in those 3 playoffs. And if you're gonna, I think Kirby knows this. If you're gonna be the person to say we play the hardest schedule on the, yeah, Alabama, Indiana last year, that thing was over after the 3rd drive of the game. I think what Kirby knows, and what he's probably the reason why he's not defending some of these other coaches, is if you're going to be the team that says we play the hardest schedule, then you should probably be the conference that goes and beats the majority of everybody else. But if you're getting your ass kicked when push comes to shove against these other big schools, it doesn't really matter what's happening in your regular season. It doesn't, if you're going to go on the road and lose to Florida in the middle of the year when Florida's having one of their worst years in recent memory, you can't, there's no reason to complain about that when you're going to go play. The Texas played a Michigan team who had a lot of the issues that we now know about. They're playing a Michigan team that was sitting a bunch of players, that was playing Bryce Underwood for only half the game, and they lost. That was Texas saying we deserve to be in the playoff, and Michigan saying what a waste of a season, and that Michigan team still beats you. I think if you're going to be I think why I like Kirby is he knows I'm not going to cry about my regular season when we can't get it done in the postseason.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother argument to be had. Plus, SEC had 5 of the 12 college football playoff teams. That was the most in the country. And the SEC even created their own strength of schedule metric, gave it to ESPN. And this is my favorite quote that came out of the SEC spring meetings. So the Greg Sankey was asked by a reporter, is the SEC happy that its new strength of record metric was used by the College Football Playoff Committee last season? Do you feel that it was effective in their way of measuring? I don't know that I know enough. That was Greg Sankey's answer to that question. If you're Greg Sankey, for those of you unfamiliar, is the SEC commissioner. He complained about how, the ESPN had the worst, or the College Football Playoff Committee had the worst metrics, and they didn't do a good job of evaluating who should make the playoff and who shouldn't. He's saying this after they got 5, and you and I both, or I know that I don't think Oklahoma deserved it, and I think Alabama deserved it. But anyways, they got 5 in, and Sankey was the one that created he himself didn't, but his people created this metric that he pitched to the College Football Playoff Committee. He got the College Football Playoff Committee to come to the SEC meeting so his coaches could air out their grievances with everything and try and put this metric to be more weight. Gets asked about it. I don't know that I know enough. If you want to have some credibility in your conversations, you got to be able to speak on the metric that you brought in these people to try and convince them that your metric is the best. That was a very interesting takeaway from Sankey as well. Not a lot came out from him outside of his little, I don't know enough.
No, so the biggest part of this is the SEC doesn't want to take the 9th extra loss. And it brings back the whole conversation of, is the SEC better? Is the Big Ten better? Well, the Big Ten's won 3 straight national titles. The SEC's been shut out. SEC was beat by like you mentioned, SEC and non-SEC games, they're 3-7. Big Ten's 15-4. If I remember what your stat was correctly. So all those metrics put you against the SEC. What I'll tell you is the only area that I'll agree with Sark is like the SEC is deeper. If let's say like Ohio State 2 years ago played Oregon, they played Penn State, they played the best teams, but what they didn't have to do is go from Oregon to Penn State to Michigan to Oklahoma out of conference. They had some breaks. Texas, like this year, they're going from like LSU to Ole Miss to Mizzou to Alabama to Oklahoma, whatever their schedule is. Every game is something they have to get up for, and the Big Ten top dogs, whether it's Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan, they have games that they have to be all in for, but they also have games that, like, I remember like the Oregon Rutgers game this past year. It was 35-0 before fans sat down, and part of that allowed Oregon to be like, all right, let's get some teach tape in, let's practice some plays. This is basically, we just flew 3,000 miles for a practice, and we'll get our starters out. We'll make sure they're healthy. We'll make sure they're rested. But overall, like in the SEC, a lot of coaches, a lot of programs don't have that luxury. So I'll agree with him there. Where I won't agree with him, though, is that the best teams in the country win the national title. This isn't baseball where your line is, if I get into the dance, I have a chance. Like, the biggest example, and I'm sorry, like we said, this is the second time we're technically doing this podcast because we planned this beforehand. But if you are the SEC, I mean, 2014, the Kansas City Royals made the playoffs as a wildcard team. They beat the A's, and it was a crazy walk-off. They swept the Angels. They won the ALCS. They all of a sudden found themselves in the World Series. They lost the World Series to the Giants. They won it the next year. But in baseball, the conversation, the line is always, if I get into the dance, I have a chance. In college football, sure, that's the line. But do you think JMU really thought they had a chance last year? No. Do you think Boise State really thought if they got past Penn State, they would be able to get past Ohio State and with Tennessee, Texas, whoever else was there not this past year, the year before? No. They were like, we're gonna go bust our ass and see where the score ends up at the end of the day. The best teams in college football win out, and Indiana, maybe they would have had one loss in the SEC schedule, but they would have. You could argue they wouldn't have. They were that good. They beat Alabama. They didn't beat Alabama. They sent Alabama packing. They destroyed Alabama. They destroyed Oregon. They beat the other best teams in the country. Ohio
Yeah,
State 2 years
absolutely.
ago, they destroyed everybody. Michigan 3 years ago, they destroyed everybody. It's not that the Big Ten's better or the SEC's worse. It's like the top end of the conferences. Sorry, I know I interrupted you, but like I guess my point is you're arguing so much that you're arguing for some leeway and grace for when you lose the game. Don't lose the game. Build a better team, build a better staff, build a better culture. Easier said than done, for sure. I sound like an idiot saying that because every team's trying to do that in the country. But instead of complaining that you're going from Oklahoma to Georgia, build an Indiana, build an Ohio State, build a team that you know like is so mentally strong, explosive, and well coached that you don't have to go out there and politic on May 27th for your playoff chance that will be decided on December 4th.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think Texas last year is the example of that. Yes, they had really good highs, and at their best, they looked pretty solid, but they had some low lows. And I'll keep saying it. Don't lose to Florida on the road when they're having a down year. You have a chance to beat Ohio State early in the season. You weren't able to do that. You take another loss in there throughout the season, you end up at 9-3. If you are 9-3 and you're losing to Florida and you're losing to Ohio State earlier in the season, you're probably not beating Indiana in the college football playoff. So if your argument is, man, we should have got in, we have a chance, you're still going to get the brakes beat off of you. And like you said, if you're truly good enough, if you are truly the national champion, you will come out on top. You will beat Florida in a regular season game. You will beat that Ohio State team who put up 14 points early in the season. Those are games that if you are truly the best team in the country, you come out on top and you win. I can't remember the last time in college football where the national champion lost two subpar teams early in the year and then ended up going to win it all. Every national champion beat all the ranked teams. And yes, some years they play 2 ranked teams. Some years they play 4. Some years they play 6 in the regular season. But at the end of the day, they win all of them and they get to the playoff. And whether it was a BCS championship or it was a 14, 12 team, they win all the games they get presented with there and they win out and they win it all. To me, the difference between being if you're 9-3 and you're in the playoff, you're probably going to get beat pretty badly by a good team the first time you sniff one. So if you're in the playoff, sure. If you're not in the playoff, then go win that bowl game. But that's the other thing. Like you're telling me that the SEC schedule is this big bad wolf and it's so difficult and you didn't make the playoff. Vandy lost to Iowa in a non-playoff game. Texas lost to Michigan in a non-playoff game. There's more that occurred that I'm not thinking of in the moment of them losing, but I think you can't dog on these other conferences and say you have this. Yes, you are the deepest conference, and yes, your conference schedules are harder than everyone else's. But at the end of the day, when you play 4 ranked teams, you can't go 1-3 in ranked games and then claim, "Hey, we're actually still really good, I promise." That's 4 auditions. If anything, you get 4 chances to prove yourself to the committee that you deserve to be there. Go win 3 of those. The leeway comes in going 10-2 or 11-1 and still being a high seed. The leeway doesn't come in being 9-3 and being 1-2 against ranked teams and then getting in. Even if you do, like I said, you're going to get in and Indiana's going to beat you by 35. So is that really like the desire that you want? And like you said, it's not baseball. It's not the 2014 Royals where, hey, we just got to be the best team for 3 of these 5 games and we can move on to the World Series. We got to catch them with their starting pitcher out. Your quarterback plays every game. Your O-line plays every game. It's football. It's a lot more physical. There's less finesse involved. If you're not going to go 3-1 in SEC ranked games, you're not going to go 4-0 in the college football playoff. So I don't know if I think the argument shouldn't be we deserve to get in. The argument, or we should play an easier schedule. I think the argument, exactly what you said, how do I get a leg up on my other opponents in the SEC? Or I get 4 auditions. Let's make the most of these 4 auditions. Some schools only get 1, and if they lose, they're done, right? Like if the group of 5 schools could come out and complain and say, hey, we only get 1 chance and we have to go perfect. So we have to go 13-0 or 12-1 if we're going to have a chance at a playoff. If anything, they would have a better right to complain about scheduling, saying we get 1 audition. And if we lose that game, hell, you could go 12. If 3 teams in your conference go 12-0, you might not even get that audition to go to the big dance. If you're in the SEC, you get 4, 5, 6 chances to prove yourself. And if you can't prove yourself in 4+ games, you were never going to win it all anyways. So we're okay not having you in that championship.
The elephant in the room, and you mentioned it, is the SEC still had 5 playoff teams last year, more than any other conference. Like, stop crying wolf, stop crying poor. You are the only conference in their spring meetings that has the college football playoff there, just to hear your grievances. The 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 elephant in the room is, it's not that the Big Ten's catching up or the SEC's going down, because their SEC is still full of is chock full of great teams. But because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, because of programs that weren't otherwise formidable in the past, the Georgias are still a really good team. But you know what they don't have? They don't have a third string that could step in and be a starter if their 1 and 2 get hurt and their only fall off is like 10%. They don't have a Texas that all of a sudden they just start struggling because they aren't as deep as they would have been if Sark got to Texas 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They out People don't know what gray shirting and blue shirting is anymore. Like, I barely know how to even explain that anymore. But Alabama was doing that so much because they were like, dude, we want this 5-star kid, but we don't have the room, scholarship, or roster space for him. So we have to basically say, come here, we'll put you on scholarship next year, and we'll make sure it's all evened out. Like, that's not a thing anymore, and the SEC is struggling to catch up. And I'll give credit to Colin Coward on this. He said it on a podcast, like, if you want to know where the future of college football is going, look at the metropolitan cities and look at the alumni bases of some programs. Why is Vanderbilt all of a sudden taking a massive step up? Well, Vanderbilt's a very good academic school. A lot of people from that school make a lot of money, and they make not that Alabama has dumb people, not that Texas has dumb people, not that Ole Miss has dumb people, but the bet like Vanderbilt, Indiana Business School, or the schools with like the best alumni or the richest alumni in Oregon, Cody Campbell, Texas Tech. Those are the schools. Those are the places that are all of a sudden going to start blowing up a little bit more. And you said you can't think of a year where like the last year where the not. Sorry, my dog is whining. Harper, stop it. Like, you can't think of a year like the last year where the national champion had lost a couple mediocre games. I can't think of the last year where the national champion wasn't the undisputed best team in college football. You're looking at Indiana last year, Ohio State the year before, Michigan the year before that, Georgia in 22 and 21, undisputed best team in the country, Alabama in 2020, LSU 2019, Clemson 2018. Clemson maybe not undisputed, but they were damn good with Trevor Lawrence as a freshman. And then like 17 was at Bama again, 16 Clemson, 15 Bama. If you want to get there, just once again, I sound stupid. Build it. Like, go relentless, build it, stop complaining. I hate the notion of like, I'm pre-predicting losses, so I need you to give me grace when the time comes to pick the playoff. I hate that.
Yeah, I'll say this though, from not a silver lining, but if you're a fan of a team that's not in the SEC, the only good that can, like, if you want to find the good in this, if the committee buys into this and does put in 9-3 SEC teams left and right, congratulations, that's more wins for you, because the SEC, if these subpar, not subpar, but if the bar is playoff caliber teams, these subpar SEC teams are going to be getting playoff spots over teams who might be more deserving. If you are one of the undisputed best teams in the country, congratulations, you get to play 9-3 Oklahoma, who doesn't have a pulse on offense. Congratulations, you get to play an Alabama team who's just kind of dysfunctional. Congratulations, you get to play a Texas A&M team who put up 3 points in their last playoff game and are going to lay another egg. Like, there's a world where these SEC teams get in over maybe an 11-1 Pitt team who would have been probably more frisky, and you'd probably rather just see the 9-3 Oklahoma. You know what you're going to get. You can game plan, you can win. So maybe a silver lining, if you are a fan of a non-SEC
That's a
team,
great point.
Give me the lower quality SEC teams. I would rather play a lower quality SEC team than a hungry, wanting to prove themselves 11-1 ACC school. And the college football playoff proved it. Number 10 Miami went all the way to the championship. They knocked out Texas A&M round 1. They knock out Ohio State round 2. They knock out Ole Miss round 3. That number 10 Miami, a lot of people were lobbying them out of the playoff, me being one of them with Notre Dame. And look at what they did. They were a hungry team that went and they proved themselves, went all the way to the championship, and gave Indiana a really good run for their money. These other SEC schools, Texas A&M, they were very safely in the playoff. They laid a dud. They scored 3 points in their loss to Miami. The only SEC win that wasn't against an SEC team was Ole Miss beating Tulane. Alabama, Oklahoma was kind of an ugly game. And then obviously an SEC team has to win that. They get boat raced. Ole Miss beats Georgia. Obviously an SEC school had to beat that. Ole Miss goes on to lose to Miami. You would almost rather get the cocky 9-3 SEC school over the I want to prove myself Miami team. I think there's a little.
You make a really good point, because by the way, we are one playoff away. If the committee does that, if the committee says here's 9-3 Oklahoma, 9-3 Texas, 9-3 Alabama, over like an 11-1 BYU, or a 10-2 BYU, 11-1 Pitt, or over a frisky team from the Big Ten, whatever it is. If that happens and those three teams win their first round games, we're going to see that again the next year. If that happens and those three teams get embarrassed, like you're predicting, there's going to be like hell to pay from the SEC. If the SEC once again has the most teams in the college football playoff and once again doesn't make the national title game, I don't know. Like Greg Sankey's I don't know. He might do some terrible things to some people. Like there's gonna be firings. There's gonna be so much bad that happens for SEC players and coaches if like their only representation is because of is getting trounced in early in the playoff. And yeah, this is all about making the playoff. That's the biggest thing. Like that's why these guys are complaining about it. But if you get the opportunity to get into the playoff, if Sark goes 10-2 or 9-3, I think they'll do better. But if they go 10-2 or 9-3 and they make the playoff and they get beat in the first round, then none of this was worth it, Sark. None of this was worth it. Like you have Arch Manning, you have an elite team, you have a $40-50 million roster, as people want to say, 60 million maybe. Why are we complaining about potential 2 or 3 losses? You're an excellent coach. Are you not confident in your own coaching ability? Like that just frustrates me. All right, we're 55 minutes in. Let's talk about Pete Golding real quick. So we could go an hour on Pete Golding. We could. I don't know where to start, but so Pete Golding, as people know, he is ground zero for tampering in this past college football cycle. Obviously, everyone knows the Luke Farrelly situation. Kid transfers out of Cal, transfers into Clemson. He's in class at Clemson, enrolled at Clemson, and he gets a text from Pete Golding offering him, like, with a picture of $1 million contract, saying if you enter the portal again, come to Ole Miss, you can be there. So he complains about, like, Dabo goes out. He starts calling Pete Golding out. He calls Ole Miss out. He calls Luke Farrelly out. He explains the tampering thing. So Ole Miss is under investigation. And normally, what would any coach in college football do if they're under investigation? Not say shit. Yeah. Or I didn't do it. Or like played above board. There's a lot of untruthful messages that are out there, but we played above board. There's compliance. You can talk to our lawyers in compliance. What Pete Golding instead said, there's a lot more people involved that everybody might not know. I'm not going to sit up here and say whatever we did or we didn't do, was it right or wrong? But, you know, what you go through, what we went through with tampering, and you're seeing day in and day out some things you feel like shouldn't matter that, you know, they're making a big deal about. By the way, no one knows what he means here. Like I just said, it felt like he was putting verb after consonant, consonant after verb until he finished the sentence that sounded right to him. But he basically admitted to tampering. He said, I'm not going to sit up here or say whatever we did or we didn't do. By the way, you can't not say you did it. Dabo Swinney has the receipts. Dabo Swinney has the pictures that you sent Luke Farrelly. And then the part that sold it to me, that they clearly tampered and they should be at least get more than a slap on the wrist, is, you know, when like you were a kid and like one of your friends might have gotten in trouble and they're telling their parents, I didn't do it. But then like in the middle of the argument, they're like, well, Jace did this, like as if like they're trying to deflect blame. Yeah, that confirms that you were in trouble. And instead, what Pete Golding said next was, so TJ Daugherty was a linebacker at Ole Miss for the last 3 years under Lane Kiffin. He's at LSU now. And Pete Golding said, not comparing Ferrelli to a guy who's been a multi-year starter like TJ Daugherty, somewhere that wasn't in the portal, that's at a new school now after going to a semifinal. Like, what are we doing? That's the piece where everyone's at. There's an enforcement of Ferrelli who just took who all he did was take an official visit to Ole Miss, but there's not an enforcement of Daugherty, who's been here for 3 years and has been tampered with the entire time. No, he hasn't been tampered with. He was coached by Lane Kiffin. I'm sure Lane tampered with him once he took the LSU offer. I'm not saying Lane's a saint, but I also think if you've been coached by a guy for 3 years and you're going into the biggest year of your college career, is your senior year trying to get drafted, you want some familiarity with your coaching staff. Luke Ferrelli was in class at Clemson. I just don't get it.
It makes no sense to me. And Pete Golding has had a kind of a rough stretch this offseason in terms of being called out, and I think he's just kind of handled it rather poorly. And this is a great point, right? Like you said, you only deflect if you committed the original crime that you got called out for, and you just don't want to talk more about it. He does have, I'll give Pete Golding a little leeway here. He does have somewhat of a point when he kind of alludes a few times to the issue isn't this one case, it's all the cases. Because there are, I'm sure every fan of their school has an instance of them being like, whoa, we definitely lost this guy to tampering, or we got that guy, you know? So I think everyone's got their version of tampering, and it is rampant. And so there is, the big picture here is there needs to be some rules and legislation because people are getting away with it. And nothing's happened to Ferrelli and Ole Miss. Nothing's happened to Daugherty or LSU. And all that we get is angry coaches, but we don't actually get any real effects. And as we've already seen with the SEC, self-preservation, unfortunately, is the priority for 95% of programs and coaches. If there's no backlash to tampering, they're going to tamper. There's just too many guys who are in self-preservation mode and are willing to do those things if that's what it takes to get to the next level or to win, to keep their job, to make the playoff. So as a whole, yes, he's got a point with tampering's an issue and there needs to be something about it. But it's the way he went about it was probably the incorrect strategy. He probably should have ignored the commentary about him being called out and just made it hey, this is a huge issue as a whole. Like let's talk about the big picture issue, rather than he kind of did the little kid thing of like, well, he did it, you know, like you were saying, like just point to me and say he did it too. That was a bad take. And also on the Pete Golding, we'll just keep going with Pete Golding here. So Sark was talking about how easy it is to transfer to Ole Miss. Yeah, Sark and Pete Golding are great for off-season podcast content. So Sark took a jab at Ole Miss saying players could take basket weaving there to get a degree. And now, like I said earlier in the show, taking the academic high ground as a Power 4 football forward school is laughable. Texas was the one that posted greatest team GPA in school history, and it was like 2.7 or something like that. Like there's individual, I'm not dogging all football players. There are individual athletes that care about academics and that do take advantage of the academics. Absolutely. But there's no one program where every kid in that program is held to a higher standard than the other programs. They're all held to relatively the same standard. It's up to the individual how much they want to go above that standard or not. At the end of the day, the talent will always take king over academics when it comes to Division I football. Pete Golding's response to that, I told him I appreciate it. I know if I'm a transfer, I'd much rather take basket weaving than biology. We appreciate his help and support. That's also, again, like a little, it's hilarious, but it's also like a little kid-esque answer to that. Like, if I'm Pete Golding, I probably don't acknowledge a jab like that. Also, like I said, Sark, why are you taking it? Like, there's no way every kid on the Texas football team is taking high-level biology and high-level academic standards, and they're all truly that much better academically off than Ole Miss's football program. But yeah, Pete Golding, just not good jab backs. I think he's trying to be that like Jim Rome, like I'm going to throw a good, like, because Jim Rome is kind of known, I'll choose my words carefully, he's kind of known to have this like slightly cocky air to him. Yeah. Where you can take some jabs. But the thing with Jim Rome is he's very intelligent. If you listen to Jim Rome talk, you can tell he's very intelligent. He's very thorough.
Researched. He does his work.
Yeah, he does very well researched, very intelligent person. So when Jim Rome takes a jab, it kind of is a gotcha because he is well researched and he is smart and
Yeah.
he thinks about what he's saying before he says it. I feel like Pete Golding thought he was doing these jabs. Well, what about TJ Daugherty? Well, I'd rather take basket weaving than biology. Just it doesn't. I don't think it changes anything. Like, no recruits care about these conversations. No people actually are moved in either direction. Nothing changes. It kind of makes the Pete Golding hiring your DC, as you always say, hiring from within. It just, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. It gives me a bad look on Pete Golding as a whole. And he's already
It
been ganged up
feels
by a few coaches, so he's isolating himself here.
it feels like he is still the DC, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
it,
feel like
I don't
a
think head coaches need to. Yeah, I don't think head coaches need to be like this suit and tie professional speak, but like you are the face of $100+ million building. You are the CEO of a massive corporation, essentially, when you're the head football coach of a university. What you say and do matters. And this is the second time I'll bring up Coward. Colin Coward has the take that like he doesn't like his quarterbacks on the Wednesday press conferences wearing a backwards hat because that's always in front of like the bank sponsor and the team backdrop and you're representing your team. And a lot of people give him shit for that. And like, I mean, you're right. Like most people are right. Like it's not that serious. Like these are 22 to 30-year-old guys wearing hats and they just got out of practice. They might flip it backwards, not thinking about it. But when you're the head football coach of a program, you don't say these lines. Like you can take shots at guys. You can say our favorite coach takes shots at guys all the time. But it's all it feels like it's within context. It's within connotation. If Nick Saban was asked, "Hey, so Sark took a shot about guys going to Alabama for academics compared to going to Texas." Like Nick would be like, "Oh, all right, anyway, so like this guy's out." Like he wouldn't even.
yeah,
He'd be like, "Okay." Like he might go call Sark after and just yell at him, but he's not gonna like try to get a public gotcha out of it. Dan Lanning might, but only after he beats you. Like Dan
I was
Lanning
gonna
will
say
just be like,
it would be followed by a win on the field.
"Yeah," but like it's always like, how do I even like Dan Lanning's gotchas are post game press conference of a win, and I guess we do our homework or whatever, like whatever it like if someone says like that Oregon's a bad academic school, I guess we do our homework. It's always like a small little shot that like could be taken veiled one way or another. My biggest point with this whole case is like I think it's kind of funny that they're having an academic argument. You and I were sitting here during the Jordan Seaton debate between when he was deciding between Oregon and LSU a couple months back. The offensive tackle ended up choosing LSU, but the concern was, well, Oregon and LSU both start school Monday, and if he doesn't commit, he's not going to be able to be in class. Do you think anybody for a 5-star offensive lineman left tackle? Do you think either of those schools cared? He could have committed August 2nd and they would have found a way to get him into class and into their lineup right away. So that alone doesn't really matter. There's a lot of things. The most the most measured response Pete had was like, granted, look at who he learned from. It's Lane Kiffin. Now, granted, before that, he was a DC of Alabama under Saban, but for years. But I don't know. It feels like he is self implanting a chip on his shoulder when he could just naturally have a chip on his shoulder. Like Lane left them. He took a bunch of players. You could just have a chip on your shoulder, go build your team as you see fit, and go dominate. But it feels like he's adding an extra chip on his shoulder that like feels very artificial.
Totally agree. And I think it's back to similar to Sark. He's putting a target on the Ole Miss back that they don't need.
Doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, and if I'm Kirby Smart, so first of all, shout out Kirby Smart. We already talked about some of his quotes from these spring meetings. Great quotes. We definitely agree with him on what he was saying. But he's got to be loving this because right now,
Yeah.
LSU and Lane Kiffin, Texas and Sark, and Ole Miss and Pete Golding are creating a lot of controversy. And that controversy is just putting targets on those three teams' backs. Everybody's going to want to beat Lane Kiffin and LSU. Everybody's going to want to beat Sark in Texas, and everybody's going to want to beat Pete Golding and Ole Miss. Well, that takes away a little bit from beating the Georgia Bulldogs. That helps Alabama Crimson Tide a little bit, because now in years past, it's always been, we want to beat Alabama, we want to beat Georgia, because they were
Yeah.
always the golden standard. They still are in terms of history and talent and all of that. But now you've got these three other schools that are drumming up the drama, drumming up the spiciness, kind of making them unlikable a little bit. That's great news if you're Georgia, if you're Alabama. You're still you're still the Circ, you're still Alabama, you're still Georgia, but the emotions that come to beating you aren't going to be quite as there as they are when teams go play Ole Miss, when teams go play Texas, when teams go play LSU. You not that Alabama and Georgia are ever going to fly under the radar. It's Alabama and it's Georgia, but they're going to be that target is a lot smaller. That target is
Yeah.
a lot less egregious. And if anything, if I'm Lane and I'm DeBoer, granted their personalities are this way naturally, but I'm not saying anything. I'm staying neutral. I'm staying quiet. I will let these three kind of cannibalize each other and let people figure out their crap with them. And I'm just going to continue to let them do their thing while I sit here and focus on my team and what we're doing to prepare for the season. Because if I'm an
Like,
Ole Miss, Texas, or LSU fan, I'm also looking at my coaches saying, are you guys actually preparing for the season?
yeah.
Pete Golding, you spend more time on talk shows, podcasts, and on Twitter throwing shots at other teams than I think you are focusing on football. So there's a lot of ways that this could impact the season.
Like, let's be honest. When was the last time you heard anything from any Big Ten coach?
It's actually
And
been
that's
a little
and
while.
that's why they've won 3 straight national titles. Obviously, it's not the main reason. Their football teams are excellent. But the main thing is the main thing in the Big Ten. And it's less worrying about other schools. Ohio State's not like, yes, you're not gonna once again, you're not gonna play 7 straight difficult games like you might in the SEC, depending on your schedule. I'll grant you that. But right now, Oregon's not worried about Ohio State. Indiana's not worried about Michigan. Michigan's not worried about Penn State. They're worried about themselves. They're worried about building college football. They're worried about their conference. They're worried about developing their teams. And all these comments are showing me is you're worried about so many extra factors when you're Texas. You're worried about other factors, like external factors. Why are we thinking about the college football playoff committee? We have a full college football regular season to go through before we even have to worry about that. Why are they in your spring meetings? Why is Pete Golding focused so much on getting a gotcha? Why? I that's the part that, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they're working really hard building their team, developing their team as they see fit. But Signetti has barely said shit. Signetti actually just recently said something about like they need to fix NIL, but he didn't say anything about like Oregon. He didn't take a shot at Ryan Day. He didn't say Northwestern needs to be relegated. Like
Yeah,
he's just like, I'm gonna worry about what's going on in Indiana. I'm gonna worry about what we have to do. I'm gonna develop my guys, and when I have to start when training camp comes around, I have to start worrying about week 1. I'll start worrying about week 1. But right now, I can't worry about week 1 because I got to make sure my wide receiver 3 turns into a wide receiver 2. I got to make sure my defensive end, who just came in, figures out how we play football. I got to make sure my quarterback has a really good understanding of the offense. It's not, I got to make sure I'm ready for Ohio State week 7. Like, that doesn't matter to him right now. And that's one of the reasons the Big Ten has won 3 straight national titles. And one of the reasons they have top or higher end teams, because the SEC is so worried about themselves. They're so worried about each other. And you're right. And I've been rambling, but you're right. Like, when the SEC is acting like a conference that needs PR, they're acting like a conference that needs publicity. They're acting like a conference that didn't have 5 teams that got into the playoff last year. What the SEC is doing right now, I'm sorry to everyone at home, I'm going to use another Oregon metaphor. When Oregon was in the Pac 12, especially in the last couple of years, the rest of the Pac 12, other than Utah, largely sucked. But Oregon was the big bad wolf in the Pac 12. So every game for Oregon, even if the other team wasn't as nearly as talented, was a hard game because it became Arizona's Super Bowl. It became Arizona State's national title. It became a fake conference title game for Oregon State. They brought their best for that game against Oregon, and Oregon won most of them, sure, But like you saw those guys go all out. You saw them have so much emotion if when they just completed a 15-yard pass against Oregon. How did like why do you think Florida beat Texas last year? Texas failed coaching wise, executing wise. Florida went after the target that was on Texas's back, and they were the guys who their coach was already fired. They were 3-7. They had nothing to lose. Texas had a target on its back. They're gonna have it again. They're gonna be like even the down team Super Bowl. Same thing with Ole Miss. Like all this is showing me. Maybe my opinion will change in 3 years. All this is showing me is like guys don't like Pete Golding. Like it feels like he was stuck at Alabama and then Ole Miss as a DC for a long time because no one wanted to make him a head coach. No one liked it. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting, but that's how it feels to me.
No, it's a fair point. There's a couple reasons why you would take shots. So many people, and when Lane Kiffin took his first shot on LSU, when he or on Ole Miss, when he made the kind of comments about the racial issues that come around with Ole Miss, like Sark took that and jumped on it. Like there's a reason you jump, like you only jump on that if like the reasons I guess I could lay them out. One is if you truly dislike the guy, so you're just waiting for your chance to take a shot. That could be a reason why you do it. Second reason could be out of fear, as in he's nervous that Ole Miss is actually becoming a real threat in the SEC and going from just like a window program to a consistent
And that's
program.
the normal part.
Could be nervous, so he's trying to take a shot. That could be what it is. Or the third one is like you want PR for yourself. You think that Texas doesn't have enough publicity, so you're using this as a chance to put your name out there. I can't imagine it's the third one. I can't imagine that he thinks Texas needs more attention than they already have. So it's got to be one of the first two or a combination of. And those things could go hand in hand. If you didn't like him, he also might not want to see him succeed. So there could be reasons for it. But yeah, like you said, all of this is to say LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, you're going from being these big brands to, I want to beat these guys. I want to smoke these guys. And like I said, if you're Georgia, if you're Alabama, when Ole Miss ends up playing Texas next, you know that those 4 weeks leading up to Ole Miss versus Texas, both those schools are going to be completely focused on that game.
Yeah.
Well, if you're Arkansas and you get to play Texas the week they play before they play Ole Miss, that's a great chance for you to get a big win. You know Texas is going to overlook you because they have this drama, they have this beef. There's this big target on Ole Miss, this big target on Texas. Two of those teams are going to be playing each other the week after.
Arkansas, Texas is a historic rivalry.
And that's a great chance for you to steal one. That's a great chance for you to get in there and get a big win that people don't see coming. Like you said, it happened last year at Texas and Florida. And I think sometimes when you drum up drama and when you become team Super Bowls, it's really easy to slip up. It's really easy to overlook a team that's not overlooking you. But like in the Big Ten right now, we haven't seen a lot of upsets in the Big Ten. And yes, a lot of that is due to the talent disparity between the top and the bottom. There is a huge gap, definitely bigger than the SEC. But I also do think part of it is all of the teams at the top of the Big Ten, as you alluded to, they're focused on themselves. And when you're focused on winning your way and executing your version of football, you're going to beat lesser programs consistently because you're kind of on the same mental playing field. So at that point, who's got more talent, who's executing at a higher level? That's why you're getting and again, there's a talent gap, but you're getting more straightforward results in the Big Ten because Ryan Day hasn't created some artificial target. Kurt Signetti hasn't created this artificial target. Dan Lanning, Kyle Whittingham, these programs don't have artificial targets. The targets are just the generic, yeah, you're a big dog, so we kind of want to beat you. But that's known. That's football. But when you create these artificial targets, now you start creating games that are bigger than they are, and you start lowering a game that should have been maybe bigger in your mind. Whereas if you're steady-minded, every game is a big game. And I think Big Ten's seen a little bit less disparity and parity because of talent gap, yes, but also top dogs are focused on themselves. And when top dogs are focused on themselves, they're going to play good football week in, week out. That's hard to beat. Whereas in the SEC, you're going to get a 3-7 Florida upsetting Texas. Yes, that Florida team's very talented, 3-7 team. But also, Florida wants to beat your ass because you talk a big game and you kind of have all this hype around you. And if you're Texas, yeah, you might have overlooked a 3-7 Florida team because you've been creating this drama with LSU, who you're going to go play in 2 weeks. So it is I do think it's net negative for these coaches to be drumming up this drama. And like you said, they don't need the money, the clicks, the attention. The SEC's got all of that. That's factored in with being the most historical conference. So it just feels like a bad situation for me for these schools.
The last thing I'll say, I completely agree. I think it's a combination of 1 and 2 of your original list of why they're doing it. But what confuses me is normally coaches who think like coaches know coaches best, right? And coaches know if you're going to be good or if you're going to be bad. And normally coaches, if you're going to be bad, they speak glowingly about you. They want you to remain the coach of that program. There was no Pac-12 spoke glowingly about Clay Helton. The Pac-12, when Jimmy Lake was at Washington, they loved him. They were like phenomenal human being, excellent defensive coach. Because you know what? It's one less threat. What I don't understand is like, do you guys think? I mean, granted, I don't know. We've seen Pete Golding coach 2 games, but that was Lane Kiffin's team. Do you think Pete Golding's a threat? And if he is, I'm excited about it because I want to be wrong about Pete Golding. I so far he's rubbed me the wrong way of like I don't love a lot of things he said. I don't. He just I don't know. I don't love a lot of Pete Golding right now, but I encourage him. I want him to prove me wrong. What goes through my mind now is like with Sark, Lane, and a lot of other SEC coaches like taking veiled shots at Ole Miss or veiled shots at Pete Golding. It feels like they are threatened by them. And if that's the case, that means they think he's going to be good, right? So that's where my mind starts like wondering. Like I'm not extremely hopeful for the Pete Golding era after this Kewan Lacey, Trinidad Chambliss core that Lane Kiffin built leaves. But the people who know coaches better are themselves, and if they're taking shots at him, that means there is a level of like angst about what he will be as a coach. Because if they thought he was going to be bad, they were going to be like, Pete's one of my best friends, coached with him at Alabama, like I just all this positive stuff. Like there's no one in the Pac-12 or in the ACC that gets more crap than Mario Cristobal. Because they know he's going to outwork them. He's going to out-recruit them. He's going to have the finances behind him. He's going to have a really tough offensive defensive line. And he's a good overall human being. There's no one in... But at the same time, people love to talk positively about Chip Kelly when he was in the Pac-12 with UCLA. People loved to talk positively about Clay Helton because it's like at least that's one less threat to my self-preservation at my school as the head coach.
Yeah, 100%. You ask any Michigan State fan, who is your favorite Michigan coach of your lifetime? You'll hear a combination of Rich Rod or Brady Hoke. Why? Because Michigan sucked in those years. You ask any Michigan fan who is their least favorite Michigan State coach, they'll probably say Mark D'Antonio. Why? Because they were really good under him. It's exactly to your point. You love the coach that tanks your enemy. You love the coach that is not a threat to you, and you don't like the coach that's a threat. Yeah, just doesn't threaten
like
you.
Good enough to keep their job. So you want to like if when Clay Helton goes 8-4, coaches come out supporting the guy because they're like he can't be fired. If you get the right hands behind the wheel of USC, all of a sudden that's a problem for me. You know,
yes, we can't let that happen.
But like, yeah. So like you start just like publicly supporting him. Absolutely. All right, Jace. I think we moved the bucket list stadiums to another show. We've been on for another hour and a half. This has been lovely. It's good to be back. It's good to have a show talking college football. It's good to have the SEC being dramatic as always. This is so much fun. We will for sure. Just so heads up, I get married 2 weeks from the time of this recording. So 2 weeks from now, there will probably be another best of show, unless Jace, you want to wake up the morning after the wedding and do a podcast. I'm
not going to sign myself up for that one.
No. So we'll try to get one out next week for sure. But just so everyone at home knows, we both have some best of shows requirements coming up in the next couple of months. We thank everybody for like being with us through that and like being flexible. I know the better content's probably just stuff like this where we're just shooting the shit on what's happening today. But life happens, and this is luckily for us. This is all the positive events of life. We're not taking time off for knock on wood bad stuff. So It's going to be a fun summer as we head into this next second season of college football with Flag for Discussion. I'm stoked for it. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you are subscribed to us on YouTube at Flag for Discussion spelled out, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Flag for Discussion spelled out. We're on TikTok at Flag4Discussion and Twitter at F4Discussion. Jace, you got anything else for our lovely listeners?
I don't. Enjoy your weekends. Enjoy the nice weather that's happening across the country. And let's hope for some more drama coming up for these offseason pods.
Yeah, watch some college baseball. It deserves more. All right, for myself, for Bob Merkazi, my lovely partner Jace Hatfield, this has been Flag for Discussion.